Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. This is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio in downtown Bridgeport, Connecticut. It's really nice to be back with you, and I'm glad to be with the people in Connecticut in a very, very icy and wet day. And I'm going to hopefully be able to take my mask off now that I'm in the studio and sitting at the mic. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate all of those of you who are regular listeners. And those of you who are just tuning in, the show's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm Chuck Wolf. And this is my beginning of my 13th year doing the show. I started in 1999, I guess. And so it's been a while. And it's, not 1999, what was it, 2009, I guess. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be back here today. The show is happening during what we call Black History Month, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about that, but mostly the show is about helping people deal with emotionally challenging situations. And so if you've got something on your mind that you're interested in chatting about, and you've been a regular listener and you know the drill, it's basically to call in to 203-336-9756, and that's the phone number to talk to me directly. And again, the number is 203-336-9756, and it's a show to help you to deal with challenging situations that you might face in your life. If you don't know about the show and you don't know about me, my background is years ago, I used to be a therapist, a family therapist for a number of years, and then I became a leadership consultant and coach, and currently in the last probably almost close to 30 years, I'm getting close to I've had my own business, which I basically work with people and use some of my therapy skills actually, but a lot of what I learned about leadership development over the years and working in a number of well-known companies, and also working at Harvard Business School for a period of time. And so my background is in individual behavioral therapy and organizational behavior, and understanding how people actually change behaviors, how they make New Year's resolutions and keep them. If you're thinking about that, that's another thing we can talk about a little bit. It's the idea of having something with New Year's resolutions is important in terms of the concept of trying to come up with ways to actually change your behavior. And one of the things that I've discovered over the years as I became expert in this area called emotional intelligence is that behavioral change actually starts with feelings. Now, you don't often think about it that way, I know, but a lot of times if you really want to, there was a metaphor out there from years ago that you might remember or recognize. It was the idea of peeling back an onion, and under each layer was another layer. Well, if you want to get to really understanding why a behavior happens, you stop and think about what you might be saying to yourself right before you engage in that behavior. And then the next level that you peel back is to understand what feelings drive those particular thoughts or self-talk that lead to the behavior. Now, why is that important? Well, I don't know about you, but I think most people have behaviors that they engage in that they know are wrong. They're not rational at all. There's no logic to them. What kind of behaviors am I talking about? Well, around New Year's, people often make resolutions about they're going to be more healthy and fit. They're going to exercise more often. And they might for a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, but somewhere along the line in that same year that they make the resolution, they're back not exercising anymore. Well, what changed? Why aren't we exercising? So that's a good behavior that you want to have and keep. But what about a behavior that you don't want to have and keep? I want to stop drinking so much at night or on the weekends. I want to pay more attention to my studies. I'm not doing enough, in my workplace, whether I'm a professional or I'm a college student or a high school student. It's like I need to do more and be more disciplined. Well, again, those are behaviors. One of the most crazy ones I think that's out there is people who are texting and driving, right? Especially on a day where there's icy roads, or any road, really, any day. To text and drive, I don't think there's a person listening to the show, and I know we have lots of different people with lots of different views about many different things, but I don't think that there's anybody that would ever argue that texting and driving is okay. And yet I'm guessing there's a fair number of you out there that might do it on occasion, some who do it a lot. Well, that's not rational, and yet we still do it anyway. Oh, I don't say we, I say some of us do that. I at one time had done that a little bit, and then I just realized how crazy that is, and I can wait, right? I can wait. I need to have better impulse control. Whatever's happening, and somebody's texting me, they can call. I have Bluetooth in my car. Somebody can call me if they really want to talk to me. It just isn't worth looking at my phone when I'm driving. And yet I see people, they look like smart people. They're driving nice cars. They look like they're dressed nice. And they're doing this stuff. So how do you stop yourself? Well, partly you want to understand what's causing irrational behaviors and how do you stop them. So that has to do with New Year's resolutions. And the way that I've discovered that we can have more control over our emotions and do better emotionally in life is by stopping and asking ourselves what feelings are causing what thoughts that are driving what behaviors. And if there are certain behaviors I want to increase, what should I be saying to myself? What do I need to feel in order to increase certain behaviors, like being more disciplined, like following through, like keeping commitments, eating 3 meals a day and not eating at night, not drinking too much at any point in time. What am I doing in excess, even if it's exercise? Am I not seeing my family enough because I'm doing too much in the way of exercise? Am I not balancing my life in the way that makes rational sense? Am I overworking? Am I spending too much time at the office and don't seem, even when I'm home, to be home? Have you ever had that feeling where you're sitting in your home and you know you're around and your children are asking you questions and your spouse or partner is asking you, or talking to you about something and they ask you what you think and you haven't even heard a word they said, although you look like you were present and listening? So how do you be more present at home? There's lots of things that emotions influence. And the more emotional control we have in our lives, the easier it is to live a happier, healthier life, I believe. And so the show is dedicated to helping anybody who calls in to walk through with me what I call an emotion roadmap. And it's interesting. I know a lot of people, when they talk about this show, they call it the emotional roadmap. And that's pretty much what people think, because somehow when we think about emotion and emotional control, we think about emotional. We don't think about emotion, the word emotion. And yet, it's kind of a funny thing. The roadmap isn't emotional. It's an emotion roadmap. And basically the idea is sometimes, for instance, if I do a lot of keynote speaking, or I have presentations in front of leadership teams, and they're consequential, and they matter, and sometimes there's some anxiety tied to it. But if I feel too much anxiety, that can get in the way. A little anxiety helps you to stay focused, but a lot of anxiety can be crippling. So if I want to feel like I have just the right amount of anxiety and a heck of a lot of confidence, how do I do that? How do I get myself to change what I might be feeling that isn't helpful to what I want to feel that could be really helpful? How do you make that happen? And this is this idea of an emotion roadmap. And again, those of you who are regular listeners, again, if you want to call in, the idea of calling in, if you're new and you've never heard the show before, is that if you have something going on in your life where you're stuck and you're uncertain about how to proceed, it's often, I find, something to do with emotions, either in you, some emotions you're struggling with internally, or some relationship issues that are tied to emotions. You're worried about making something worse or escalating a situation, or doing something that may not be something that somebody else could forgive. So in any case, whatever's going on when you're stuck, it seems like emotions play a key role in that. And so by focusing on the emotions that are in play, by asking a set of questions, I help people come up with new options, new and better, and sometimes options that feel magical because they make such a difference. And that's what the show's about. So again, if somebody's been waiting to call me and you're just waiting for me to get back, because I'm on the air twice a month, the first and second Wednesdays of each month. And let me wish everybody out there, whether you're a new listener or a regular listener, a happy new year to you. I hope that 2022 is going to be a year that is something that is so much better than the past couple of years. I remember feeling great about 2021. We all couldn't wait for 2020 to end. And now 2021, it's I have to say it hasn't been a great year for a lot of people. A lot of people have passed away, unfortunately. This COVID thing seems to continue to find ways to stick around even when we think we beat it. And people are dealing with that constantly right now. We had issues with this at the station. We have it where my daughter teaches, where my other daughters work. You know, it's everywhere again, and it seems to be even more of it going on. We have an unbelievable positivity rate for testing. I think in the last I saw around 24%, which is stunning. Actually, it's such a high number. And supposedly, you know, if you're vaccinated, you don't get as sick. And so I know that it's an individual choice to get vaccinated, but I just think it's a smart choice to get vaccinated, and I hope you do too. For lots of reasons, but the show's not about that. But my point I want to make is that we're dealing with a lot of stress in our lives, and I think that complicates the way we deal with other issues. I know that there was some tense moments in my own home because my wife and I are both tired because we're trying to, one, be with our families, but also help out our families because one of my grandchildren was exposed to COVID in where he goes to preschool. And, you know, you have to stay home when that happens for a period of time. And my daughter and son-in-law, they both work at home. And while they can have him home, it's really hard, as you can imagine, to deal with a young child at home when you're working. And so my wife, you know, offered to go over and help, and she's great at it and she loves it, but she's pretty darn tired at the end of the day. So, you know, we're all kind of like stressed about the COVID situation. And, you know, when you don't get good sleep, then other things happen that aren't good either. So you try to get rested as best you can and be helpful where you can and be kind where you can. Those are all things that make the world a better place. And doing this show, I hope people see this as a kindness, that it's something that I do to try to help people out in life. And the beauty of the show, if you call in, is that if I can help you, if there's some way I can help you, then I'm helping everybody because I'm teaching them this roadmap. And the roadmap works like this. Basically, you call in, you tell me a little bit about what's going on, something at work where you're having a conflict, a tough time with a boss or someone that works for you or a peer, or something's happening at work, or you're thinking about changing jobs, or you're wondering about how to ask for a raise or a promotion, or at least just a change in what you're doing. And you're struggling with that for all kinds of legitimate emotional reasons. But how do you proceed? How do you go forward? And if you're not certain, what I do is I ask you to think about, well, how are you feeling about whatever the situation is? And is there anyone else that's key to it? And how is he or she or they feeling? Because you want to know what anyone that's involved is feeling that's going to have some real strong influence over it, and how you're feeling. And then you want to ask, are the feelings helpful? Because feelings are always informational. They're data. They inform us. They're an evolutionary system, actually. This idea of emotions it's not like emotions are random. Emotions are a reaction to the environment that we're in, or at least our perception of the situation that we're facing. Our emotions inform us about that, about how we're reacting to that. That's why if you're, all of a sudden a dog starts barking and it breaks loose from somebody else that's supposedly taking care of that dog, and you're in the dog's path, you want to get in behind a closed door somewhere if you think the dog might be dangerous. That's an emotional of fear that's a reaction to a real dangerous situation. So emotions, again, they're data and they're information and they're evolutionary and they're important. But once in a while, let's take, for example, you're grieving because something very unfortunate happened. Someone passed away that you love, or you lost the key, memento, or, some people just had these terrible fires happen in Colorado, lost everything, there's times when you're grieving that it's really appropriate to grieve. Grieving is a response to loss. But what if you also have a presentation to make the same day, or some kind of sales meeting where you're trying to sell something that's going to make a big difference on whether or not you have a good amount of revenue this month or not? And you have to show up differently. So you have to somehow know how to, compartmentalize that emotion and sort of push it aside and bring some other emotion in that's going to be helpful for you, at least for a period of time, and then go back to grieving. So it's not about not feeling things. It's about understanding how to deal with what you are feeling. And when what you're feeling isn't helpful for what you currently have to do, can you change that feeling to something else? Now, you are going to grieve once you've lost something important, but maybe not today, or maybe not in the next 6 hours or something. Also, sometimes you're angry. And it's a legitimate reason. You're reacting to something that shouldn't have happened that did happen. Then you're angry, and it's legitimate. But going into the next group meeting that you have at work or at home or in your neighborhood or with your community or with your church, synagogue, mosque, whatever, you being angry is really going to complicate things and be in your way. So how do you change what you're feeling when you're going into those meetings? How do you do that? That's the idea of an emotion roadmap. So if you've got something that's happening either in your neighborhood, in your workplace, somehow in your community, in organizations you belong to, whether religious or clubs of any kind, or any group that you're a part of, or just something internally that you're struggling with. If you want to give me a call, I walk you through these questions of how are you feeling, and anyone else that's key, how is he or she or they feeling? What would be ideal to feel? I help you explore that. And how do you get from what you are feeling to what you feel like you want and need to feel? How do you do that? And then as we explore options, we consider any of the strategies we talk about moving from one feeling to another in terms of 2 questions that are part of this roadmap I created, which is any of the scenarios or strategies that you're creating, are they something that you're willing to do? Sometimes we think that we got a strategy that might work, but we're not really willing. There's a lot of reasons for that. But sometimes that's the case. We're not really willing. But if we are willing, that's the answer to question 1 that says yes. So that says we possibly have a good plan. The second part is it something we really think we can do? And why wouldn't it be something we can do? Well, it may involve certain skills that we don't have. It may involve some time or taking time, and we don't have the time right now. It may cost us something. It may be, cost in terms of money. It may cost some money to do one of the strategies or that we're considering, and we don't have enough money to set aside for that to happen. Whatever it might be that we can't do it for some reason. But if we can, if we have the time, the energy, and the ability, and we're willing and able to do it, then we have a plan that has a chance of working. And that's what people get from the show. They learn how to use this roadmap. How are you feeling? What would be ideal to feel? How do you get from what you're feeling to what's ideal? And of the strategies we think about, which ones are you willing to do and which ones are you capable of doing? That's it. So when I walk you through that, though, and in terms of people's, real life concerns, it really informs everybody. It helps everybody to know how this works. So if you would like to call, again, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Again, I'm Chuck Wolf. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, Connecticut, streaming on WPKN.org. And a lot of my shows and other people's shows here are on SoundCloud, on iTunes, and also I put a number of mine on the Public Radio Exchange, PRX. So if you want to listen to some of the past shows, I put the shows up, I think, that are fun to listen to and also informative and educational and provide some lessons for everybody. Because a lot of the things people struggle with are things that other people are actually struggling with too. So if you call, you're helping not only yourself, hopefully, but anybody else that's listening. In part because they may have some kind of things going on similar to you, but also because everybody's learning a little bit more about the emotion roadmap. So I hope that longtime listeners have learned a lot about it. If you've got something else that you'd like to share in the way of something to do with the new year that we're experiencing now, and you want to talk a little bit about how you're approaching New Year's this year, it'd be nice just to hear from you as well. 203-336-9756. And if you call, I've got to figure out how the phones work again. It's been a while. This is all brand new. We're in this brand new studio that PKN just moved into in downtown Bridgeport and Fairfield Avenue. The place is really, really nice looking and pretty. And I joked about it when we first moved. I felt like where we'd been for a long time was the University of Bridgeport that most of you who are regular listeners know. And it had an ambiance about it, that's for sure, that just made you feel like you were in a bubble almost, like where time stood still for a long time, the old studio. And it kind of felt like we went from the Flintstones to the Jetsons here. Okay, looks like we got my first call. Let's see if I figure this out. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Yeah, hi, Chuck. Norm Jensen. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Norm? Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, you're welcome. You talk about emotions. Let me turn the radio down here. Okay. I'm trying to deal with this emotional stuff with, this COVID.
Yeah.
And family members who don't want to get the shot because they think their immune system is strong enough to, ward it off. And I try to convince them not convince them, but to have them understand that it's not that your immune system is strong enough. Suppose you do get the shots that they're offering for nothing is like a safety gate, all right? So to help you not contract the COVID or whatever else is going on out there, right. Omicron,
right.
The other ones.
Right.
So I'm dealing with this with my daughter. She's an intelligent lady. She's 53 years old, and even her husband doesn't even get it. And that worries me. That's the worry and the concern, and it's a mixed emotion going on in my body. And every time I talk to my daughter, I feel like I want to talk to her about this, but I can't because I love her. I love her enough to want her to get the shot, but I love her enough not to make waves and argue about this.
Yeah.
It's a thing to deal with.
Yeah,
How do you deal with it?
Norman.
That's a,
Yeah, no, Norman, everybody that's out there that's listening to the show today is saying amen to that because all of us, I mean, yeah, I don't know anyone that I'm close to who doesn't have family members who are like your daughter and son-in-law who just don't necessarily get it. Well, I don't want to say get it because I really hate to judge people because of what they do or don't do. I mean, I know there's some reasons why people might not want to put anything new into their bodies that's foreign. And I also know that, we did it without thinking. Especially, when your kids go to school, you get those measles, mumps vaccine. That's just, you don't even think about it. You just do it. Because we've been doing it for years, and we eradicated a lot of problems for a lot of kids. And polio was another one that when I was a kid, I had a neighbor who had got polio, and you didn't think about it. You were just so grateful that somebody came up with something that could stop these diseases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell my daughter. I grew up, nobody was going questioning these vaccines. Nobody thought about, it's going to affect my immune system. They got it because it was there and it helped, and it stopped these things, from spreading. That's the important thing. That's the spreading this.
Yeah, I think I think if I always part of what I've done as a therapist over the years is you hear things from people and your initial reaction is, oh my God, how could you do that? But if you want to help them, you got to, at least as a therapist, you have to get past, oh my God, why would you do that? You want to understand, okay, why would you do that? What was going on in your mind? What was it you were saying to yourself? How were you feeling that caused you to do something like that? And then over the years, I learned about this emotional intelligence and this idea that sometimes you can get people to think about, about the feelings that are driving these thoughts and behaviors. And if you kind of think about what's happened over time with this vaccine. Unfortunately, the vaccination, COVID, the whole thing got caught up in politics, and I think that's influenced a lot of people, don't you?
Yes, that's one big thing. My daughter doesn't come right out and say and use the word politics. She says, "Oh, everybody's making money on these vaccines, and this." People who are invested in these companies are making tons of money, and that's all it is, a money-making thing. And I said, I have to say to her, wait a minute, what are you talking about? So everybody's going to make money on something. That's what this country and this world is about, money. And it's a sad thing that it has come down to money all the time. But regardless, this is your health. Don't you buy insurance, for yourself? You cost money to buy insurance.
Right.
The shot is an insurance policy for you. Just get the shot. It's for free, I tell them.
Well, yeah, somebody's paying for it, but you're not when you go to get the shot. So that's true. I think you want to separate a couple things for you here. One is the whole argument about should you or shouldn't you get a vaccination. That's one argument. The other is the one that you were sort of alluding to as well, which is how do I because this could be about something else too. It isn't just COVID and vaccinations that cause people not, to have trouble inside families, because politics has become extremely divisive as well, right? And so if you're having to think one way and you think that the Democrats are absolutely the only choice in town, or you think that you have the opinion that Democrats are insane and that the Republicans are the only choice in town, either way you think one of the other groups are insane. And so and yet you're talking to your family members that you want to love and you care about. And so you try to understand, how do I deal with this stuff? And honestly, this isn't something that I think that you can just make a decision one day, because something will happen that will just say to you, hey, what I believe is so important that you believe it too, because of something that just happened today. So even though I've come to calm down about having these conversations with people that don't agree with me, I feel like every once in a while it just bubbles up again. especially when I get kind of tired and I'm frustrated, and then I'm really upset by something that happens. I just want to share it with people that I love and care about who don't necessarily see things the same way I do sometimes. So it becomes really hard to get that right. So that's separate from whether you get the vaccination or not. I mean, they're related, but do you see them as separate?
Well, well, in a way I do, but it's like there's a pattern with my daughter and her husband and his family, and the thing is that they were going to go visit his father out in Wisconsin, and at the last minute he told them not to come out because they're not vaccinated. So that put a stop on him and my daughter to visit his father. Yeah. Now that I could do the same thing. I could say to my daughter, well, her name is Laura. Well, I don't want to see you because you're not vaccinated. You can't come over here. I'm concerned. I am concerned about you giving me the germ, even though I'm triple vaccinated already. Right. I could maybe carry that germ to someone else, So, what do I do? I don't want to do that. I don't want to say don't come over. So she does come over. Yeah. And I hug her. I hear you. Yeah. It's a joy to see. I don't want to, put my child into a box or a bubble or whatever. So now you're talking about the risk and the benefit in this kind of relationship, right? This is logical thinking in my part. It's logical thinking. It's nothing to be put your I got my immune system is better, is good. It's going to contaminate my system. The shots, all these reasons that they have, I can't deal with those. They are absolutely, in my mind, bogus. Well, that's where it gets challenging, Norman, because in their minds, in their minds, they think that you've succumbed to what they think is bogus information. Because, just think about it. I mean, if you want to make the argument on the other side, you say, hey, in the beginning, they told us you get the vaccine, you don't get COVID. That was a lie. They didn't know, right? They didn't know, but that's what they thought. They thought initially that if you didn't get COVID, now everybody is, well, you're going to be, there's less hospitalizations and there's less deaths if you have the vaccine, but you still might get it because people are fully vaccinated. We know, there's a bunch of breakthrough cases, they call them, where people, so they think you've succumbed to, the same kind of bogus information you think they, I try to see all sides to things when I'm dealing with issues. And so here's the way I try to understand it and how this emotional stuff helps, I think. The concept of an emotion romance. So if I want to see your daughter, if you want to see your daughter and you don't want to keep her her boyfriend or husband's father, says don't come because you're not vaccinated. If you don't want that to happen, then one thing that is possible is that maybe you don't see her a lot, but every time you are going to see her, you ask her to get one of those tests that are. I know they're really hard, but you ask her just for peace of mind. I would appreciate it, and and again, so you're talking about emotionally. I don't know that she could be really negative about that. I mean, she could be, and she could dig in on that even. But I think a lot of people that are saying, "I really want to see you, but I'm scared." And so, would you be okay with just getting one of those rapid tests? And if it's negative, then come and spend as much time as you want with me, because I'd love to see you. Well, she has been doing that. She has the intelligence enough to do that, get the test. And before they were going to go out there, they were tested, and negative tests. They had gotten results. But she never mentions, and I never thought of asking her to do that. So that to me is probably a good idea.
The way I think about this, Norman, that makes it easier for her to digest, to hear it, is that you're not challenging her thought process anymore. You're not saying in your own mind, I mean, you might still say it in your own mind, but you're not saying to her that this is really incredibly stupid. Could you just get the shot so we can hang out together? You're not saying that. You're just saying, hey, I'm scared. This is scary to me. Yeah. A lot of people my age have died from this, and I'm in that compromised community. And the other thing that scares me is not seeing you, because you're so much a part of my world. I want to see you, but before you come, could you take one of those tests just so that I can see you and not be frightened at the same time we're together, something like that.
Well, yeah, that's very good. Asking her, I don't tell her things. I ask things of her.
But you're making it a legitimate, reasonable argument about you being scared, and yet you love her so much you still want to see her despite this craziness that's out there right now. And would she be okay with this? And I don't know. I mean, it sounds like your daughter's pretty smart, and she's just,
Oh, she is. She is.
I mean, I know a lot of smart people that aren't taking the shot either, and it makes me kind of nuts because there's people I love, but I also think, look, people got to make their own choices. But I'm not seeing them. And if they're gonna, if they want to see me, and these aren't my own immediate family, but some of my nieces and nephews, and so it's like, we just haven't seen them in a year and a half or 2 years even now, going on. So, and I'd love to see them, but if they all want to get tested and say, would you come and visit with us? We all just got tested. We'd probably do it. But again, this is with your daughter, so this is really important. And if you present it in the way I'm suggesting it, because you're thinking about how you want her to feel, and you want to let her know how you're feeling. And I think the two key things are you're saying you're scared because you're in this community that is compromised, et cetera, and that you love her really much and you don't want to close the door to seeing her. But, life would be just so much easier if, she'd be comfortable taking those tests before she comes over. That's all.
No, that's a good suggestion, yeah. The ironic thing is that she's a certified massage therapist, and she sees clients. So she's got to be. She does wear a mask. She told me when she sees her clients. Yeah. And I imagine I never asked her if she got the COVID test before she goes to see her clients. I don't know about that, but that's another thing.
So many people are exposed to, my daughter, we see my daughter, and she's a fully vaccinated, but she's in schools every day. She's a special needs teacher, and she works in a public school. And so there's all kinds of kids kids and teachers and other adults in the building getting COVID. So, all of us that go out anywhere are exposing ourselves to numbers of people that we have no idea what their history, what their situations are. And so your daughter inadvertently could be carrying something, and not purposely, of course, but, just because she's out in the public. So, and we all are to some extent, just some more than others. And so, again, I think the remedy for this one, at least, is just the kind of positioning of feelings, I think, that make the difference when you're talking to her about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, the next time she comes here, I'm gonna have to ask her, get the test done, so I feel safer. It's just that every time I see these ads on the television, well, they seem like ads, but the doctors talking about the COVID and getting the shots, and listening to the late show talks where they have these doctors come on and they're talking intelligently about all the progress of the shots and how the effectiveness is, and it's saying, I'm saying to myself, then that thought comes into my mind again. Well,
here's a way to control that, Norman. And I'm serious about this. I don't want to be trite, but watch less of that stuff.
Yeah.
If there's a real breakthrough, you might just watch the first 5 minutes and if there's a real breakthrough or something, sure, you want to be in touch with that. But other than that, those shows go on and on, one opinionated person after another. And depending on which show you watch, by the way, you're going to get different information.
Yeah, but I'm not watching CNN and all that. I'm talking about late night shows where they have a guest come on, and the guests are these doctors who have been in the field for years, like Fauci and other doctors, and they intelligently talk about how the effectiveness of the shots and how, and what's going on with the shots and who should get them and whatnot.
I hear. Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way. If you want to continue to watch those guests on those late night shows, I understand you're not watching CNN where it's, you could feel, just like Fox.
Or Fox.
Yeah,
Fox.
Right.
I don't watch that. I don't watch that stuff. That's too much.
Right. And so if you occasionally see somebody who's on the air and talking about this stuff and you want to just listen because you find it interesting and maybe there's something you learn, that's fine.
Uh-huh.
But you also recognize, Norman, every one of these people you're listening to, unless they're talking about something breakthrough that's brand new, they're just kind of feeding the flames that you're feeling. Emotionally, I'm just trying to tell you how it works. And
I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so maybe you turn to a different late night show and you don't watch something else just to be entertained and not to be, I mean, it's kind of hard to go to bed after that, because immediately your mind races to, why doesn't my daughter know this, right?
Well, I don't let it consume me. I mean, I don't lose sleep over this.
Okay.
Let's say that, so I'm okay with that. I listen. I take it for what it's worth.
Okay.
And I don't say, oh, I got to call my daughter and try to convince her to get the shot after I hear these things. I don't do that.
Well, like I said, you have a choice. If you find it entertaining and it's interesting to you, and it doesn't stir the pot and make things worse for you, fine.
Yeah.
But if you feel like it sometimes you're just throwing grease on a fire, right, or oil on a fire, and it just makes it burn brighter. And if that is if you feel that's under control and not a problem for you, then keep listening. I'm suggesting, and it's not just for you, but for lots of other people that are listening, if you feel like you're boiling up a little bit when you hear that, because you have people you love that aren't taking the shot, turn it off.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, the main thing is that what you said to me about you're getting tested before she comes to visit.
Yeah, because you're scared, and because you let her know, because let her know your feelings, that you're feeling vulnerable, and that's the love part on her part that she'll recognize, and she won't be upset by that call. I don't think.
The one thing though, I have never asked her what she thinks, about her coming to see me and without having vaccinated. What is her thoughts about all of this, and how she feels about how I feel, what she thinks about, my feelings. Okay?
Well, if you go down that path, you're likely to create some defensiveness, don't you think?
Probably, I don't know. That's why I'm being so careful.
That's why I'm suggesting if you just tell, if you don't put it on her, you say, this is about me and how I'm feeling, and then she can tell you. She can tell you what she thinks, or she can just do it. And I mean, sometimes when you got a conflict with somebody, there are certain things that are worth pursuing and taking a deep dive into. And then when you don't seem to get anywhere as a result of that, you got some choices to make. You either keep going there, which makes life really uncomfortable because there's always that threat of that blowing up when you're together, or you decide, you know what, this is just something we're going to disagree on, and there's really I don't see any way that we can change this. So I'm going to just let go of it as best I can, so that I can just because this is a person I love and I just want to be with her.
Well, that's it. Occasionally, I get that feeling. I just let it go, but then it's like a seesaw, Then I get these feelings of, I don't want to get a phone call and hear that she's in the hospital. That's things that go on in my mind. I don't want to see her in the hospital.
Sure, nobody does, and that's why it can make you crazy when you keep stirring the pot around this stuff. But I think if you've had your conversation, she's made her mind up. People are pretty dug in, as far as I can tell, on this stuff. I don't know that there's much that's going to change people's minds. I mean, I've had people that have somebody really close to them get it and really be sick with it, and still don't get the shot. And to me, it doesn't make sense. But the world, that's why I'm on the air. A lot of the world doesn't make sense, but you try to understand emotionally what's going on.
Well, I thank you for your thoughts and the one thing about that her having a test done before we get together, it seems like a very good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but Anyway,
Well, it's how you position it, Norman. Thanks a lot for the call. I'm going to take somebody else now. Thank you.
okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just had somebody else calling and I couldn't take the call. I don't have anybody else to answer the phone. If you want to call, oh yeah, okay. It looks like you're calling back in. Okay. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, Chuck. How you doing? My name's Bob.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, appreciate it. I just wanted to add a little bit to the last caller.
Sure.
Obviously, I think we're all going through this dance of who can we trust? Can we trust? What can we do? What event can we attend? I had to basically cancel my New Year's plans because the people that were having the party were all unvaccinated and didn't seem to really care.
Yeah.
So I had a smaller event, and there were two people that weren't vaccinated that did attend, but they brought the self-tests, which I still was a little bit queasy about, but regardless, we had no real issues that I'm aware of. But I think a big difference, and I'm sure you'll agree, from today to the 50s when we all were good citizens and got our vaccines and didn't question authority and did what we needed to do. It's just basically, you look at it, there were 3 television channels or something like that
That's
at the
right.
time.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't have all these mixed media and all these talking heads and opinion shows that confuse you because they've got news monikers on them, and you're going, "What is this? It's the news?" No, it's Joe Blow's opinion show. But what bothers me, I guess, is and I've contacted all of my state, my reps in Congress, senators, congressmen in my state and the state and other states about this media. And I really believe that that's the big problem in our country. And everybody says fake news, and there is truth to that, because you've got people like me and you or whoever that work 9 to 5. We come home, we put on our favorite show, and we listen to it religiously and believe what they're telling us. And it could be Tucker Carlson or it could be Rachel Maddow or whoever. Right. And they're telling us these things, but they've got MSNBC News or Fox News moniker over their show. And you're sitting there going, gee, this is news. But a lot of people do that.
I know.
And I said, to my senators and congressmen, I was waiting for one of them to reply, anyone to reply, even the White House I contacted. And I said, freedom of speech is one thing. Everyone should have their opinion and be able to express their opinion, but you shouldn't do it under the guise of news. And that's the danger in this country, is when you have these talking heads that have these news monikers flashing, and it fools people into believing that it's the truth. And I feel that people should be able to say what they want, but news needs to rise to a higher standard. And when it comes to news and you put that news moniker on your program, then you darn right better have vetted the information, made sure it's factual, and are presenting it in that way. That should be a law, I think, quite frankly. And I think that would straighten up a lot of the problem. In other words, fine them if you start reporting lies as news, you get a fine. 3 fines, lose your broadcast license. That really should be, and I think and I've spoken to people on both sides, Republicans, Democrats, liberal, conservative, and we all want the best for the country. But we're all being fooled, and everybody's got an agenda somehow. Okay, don't get COVID vaccines. Why? Because my dad has stock in the company that makes the masks, or whatever it is. There's definite money reasons why people are keeping this COVID thing going. It's because there are a lot of people making big money off of it. And, that's my thought. And I really believe that I like what they're doing over in France with Macron and what he's saying. He's saying, hey, I'm going to make it as uncomfortable as possible for you people that don't get vaccinated. Sure, you can have your rights and freedoms, but you know what? You're not going to go to the theater. You're not going to the restaurant. You're not going to go to, whatever, if you don't get vaccinated. Make it a little harder on people.
Yeah, that's another approach that's pretty strong. and powerful and what it accomplishes, and depending on what side of the argument you're on, you might find that offensive, right? For the people that are libertarian and feel like, really, you're gonna decide that we can't really live here in this country anymore unless we do what you tell us we have to do to our body. I mean, that's the other side, right?
Pull back government benefits, all right? Hey, we're not going to pay for your medical bills. You're not going to get these benefits. You're not going to get this and that if you're not vaccinated. Some way you got to make it difficult on people because there's too much opinion out there. But I've got one as well.
Yeah, I guess you do. What you're saying makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, again, it was a different world when you felt like people went on the news. I've heard this a number of times. Years ago, I grew up with Walter Cronkite, and I guess he was very liberal, but you never knew it. When he was on the news, he just reported what he thought was the truth as he understood it, and you got what you thought were facts, and you didn't feel like it was biased.
Yeah, and you had investigative journalists that were out. Every newspaper had them, and there were people on the ground with feet on the ground checking facts and doing all this. And now it's like there's one corporate media that's whitewashes everything. And what's sad is I did contact, like I said, all my senators, congressmen. I went to other states. I contacted the White House, and all I got back, if they responded at all, was like a Dear John letter, and it was a general reply, thank you for writing us, but they didn't acknowledge that they even heard what you were saying, and that's dangerous and sad, too, I think.
I think so, too. One of the other things that you could do that you might feel a little better about, because I've done this as well, is sometimes where there are a few representatives that I found that do actually answer you with an intelligent comment about what you wrote about, but most of them don't. Most of them is just like, here's what I accomplished this year, and it has nothing to do with your letter. One of their aides is vetting the letters or emails coming in, and they're making the decision to sending out a canned response. And I don't know that the actual representative gets to hear what the issue, what your concern is, Well, I think if you call their offices, that's what I was going to suggest, and you talk to somebody, it still might just get shuttled off to the side, but at least you're talking to somebody. And if enough people call in, by the way, I think your idea, I'm not sure how you manage it, though. I mean, it's because there's so much, political bias out there. How do you actually decide who's telling the truth out there? Would you just ban certain stations? If you're a conservative, would you only look to ban the liberal, liberal, or if you're a liberal, would you only want to ban the conservative stations? You know what I mean? So, and plus, I think there's so much money being made on all this because the sensationalism is what grabs, what causes you to click and learn more, right? Some headline grabs you, and the more clicks, the more advertisement money you make. So, I mean, there's a lot of connections to capitalism at times. I love capitalism, but there's a lot of greed out there that complicates it. But socialism, I mean, you've seen in my mind, socialism, communism. Yeah, I mean, it's great ideas, but it gets corrupted. Where have you seen it work where the government doesn't take over control, right? So I think that all these things are complicated by individuals who get into power, and then power itself corrupts sometimes. So how do you keep?
Absolutely. And it's funny how you mentioned socialism, because that seems to be a big issue from what I've seen with, say, our Latino population down in, say, come down in Miami area or down in Florida area where you have a lot of Latinos that I believe, their version of socialism is some dictator that's, stealing your money and doing this and that, not like, the post office or the, public education or things like that, which really is what socialism in this country is. And I think that's where the Democrats are doing a very poor job in getting that message out to these folks that, no, we're not talking about some dictator stealing your things, socialism like that. We're talking about, education or benefits for poor people or, that kind of thing. So,
well, I think there's a lot in what you just said and what we're talking about that we're not going to have a chance to go into. But I do think it's important, I think, as you look at this, if there was some way that people, consciously put lies out there and got caught at it, that would complicate their license to broadcast. That actually sounds like I don't know how you make it work, but in principle, at least, that sounds pretty legitimate to me. So.
Yeah, it would have to be, I think, a law. There would have to be definitely a law, and it'd have to be under like the FCC or something, where they have branch that actually monitors, and you could report stuff to where they would go out and do.
You mean a branch of government that you trust these days?
Well, you gotta.
Sounds like an oxymoron to me.
I'll be honest with you. I work for the government, and we. It's the average government worker is doing their job, and they're doing I think, a damn good job. It's when you get way up into the high levels of these agencies where these are political appointees and things like that's where you start getting into a lot of that muck, I think.
Well, but again, in principle, I really like the idea because you really want people not to just be putting out propaganda and biased information that they know isn't true. I mean, because the whole concept of journalism, you lose the belief. You want to believe in journalistic expression and freedom of the press, but for people to report what they believe is legitimate news based on real sources, and all these anonymous source stories bother me a lot too.
Yeah.
And especially when you find out that they aren't true, and then there's no consequence or accountability for it. So something along the lines of what you're talking about. I mean, hopefully we learn something going forward about how not to make ourselves nuts, because we're doing a pretty good job doing that.
Yeah, I mean, even if they just started by saying, "Hey, you can have your opinion show, but don't be flashing news monikers over it," to make and have a disclaimer at the beginning. This is just an opinion, not actual news. Blah blah blah, and then maybe that would help alleviate some of the confusion. Well,
I'm going to have to go, but thanks a lot for the call. I appreciate it, and keep trying on that. I like the idea. So thanks a lot for the call, and happy New Year to you.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. This has been Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'll be back next week. Look forward to talking to you then. Bye-bye now.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.